Hi everyone, I just got in another 15 plus 10 training game. I'm going to play e4 as I usually do in the recent training videos. So the last game was just dreadful and I blundered the same way my opponents blundered in the last few games. Just stupid moves with absolutely, well, inexplicable blunder. Basically I just blundered the piece. And it wasn't like I didn't see that a piece was hanging, I just miscalculated so poorly, or it wasn't even miscalculation, it was just a weird mistake. Okay, so my opponent does decide to play. I'm going to take. Let's see if he takes on d5 or plays knight f6. I actually played a game against knight f6, so here I'm going to play knight f3. This is a line which I enjoy a lot. You don't put a knight on c3, which is the main issue in the Scandinavian for white. If you have a knight on c3, then you cannot play c4, you cannot move your c-pawn. When you play knight f3, you leave yourself a bit more flexible. Yeah, and this is... it's not a bad move, but it is not the critical move. The critical line goes bishop g4, and after bishop e2, knight c6, and then d4, and then black castles queenside. So knight f6 basically prevents black from going for the most active setup possible. Okay, so now I'm going to play bishop e2 anyway, because it's a useful move I would like to play. And I'm gonna go d4 anyway, and I'm going to have time to castle kingside, which you don't normally have in the main lines. I'm going to show you the very, very sharp ideas in the opening. Okay, I'm not used to c5 because it doesn't prevent d4. I think this is a mistake, although it cannot be such a bad move, but it doesn't lead to a Scandinavian setup. In the Scandinavian, black plays c6 and e6 after the bishop has been developed, so this is slightly strange. Then again, if I don't play d4 now, my opponent may play e5, preventing me from playing d4 ever. But if I play d4 and he takes, he could have e5 with a tempo on the knight on d4 or the queen. As I said, the last game was dreadful. I want to do much better now. So I'm going to play d4 just to prevent e5. Because if e5 comes, then it's sort of a reversed Maroczy bind setup for black, which if I don't play d4, then I'm never better, I feel. So I'm just going to play it now. If he plays knight c6, I'm going to go c4. Maybe I could have gone c4 straight away. Okay, he takes. Now, this actually resembles a French position, Tarrasch French, where my knight is on d2 and I get to play bishop to c4, in which case e5 is a mistake. But since the pawn is not on e6 here, e5 can be played in one move, so it may be slightly different. So I think I'm just going to take the pawn. I don't want any funny stuff happening. So okay, I'm just going to take. Okay. Okay, he prevents knight b5. Now, how do I want to develop? Yeah, maybe I should have played d4 instead of bishop e2. But then again, if on d4 he plays c5, I wouldn't have taken, so I don't think I made a mistake. Okay, so he wants to play knight c6 here. It actually may be a good idea to play bishop f3 straight away. Now, when you're in a position you don't know, thematic moves or normal moves like castles shouldn't be played automatically. I'm actually not sure what he does against bishop f3, because on bishop c6 I can take twice and I simply have a better pawn structure. If he plays e5, I can take on b7. If he plays knight c6, again I take twice and I have a better pawn structure. He's developing a piece more useful, because if he gets in knight c6, it's of course completely equal. If anything, black has a central pawn, so has some more control. I have a 3-2 pawn majority on the queen side though. So I feel that any endgame should be better for me because of my 3-2 majority. So I'm going to play bishop f3. I mean, normally moving the same piece twice is not a good idea, but I feel like this is a good idea, especially if he has to play bishop c8, which may as well be the best move. But then I have knight b5, knight a6. I'm not sure. This is a very unfamiliar position to me. All I know is that I have a pawn majority which should give me better endgames. Maybe bishop c8 is the best move. That may sound strange, but I don't actually know what else he could do. He plays knight c6, yes. I'm going to take this. And now endgames are better for me. That has to be true. I mean, I gave him a lead in development, sort of, because I traded off my active piece for the piece he just developed. So if we trade off these two bishops, he has basically a lead in development. But I don't think that matters because of the structural weaknesses. So now we have an endgame already. If he takes with the pawn, my bishop is a monster, so he should take with the bishop. And if he takes with the bishop, I take, pawn takes. Should I castle? Okay, let's just play quickly. Is there something more urgent I have to do? Do I want my knight on c3 or do I want my pawn on c4 first? Knight c3, he plays e5, then bishop b4 is coming. Maybe I want my knight on d2. And he's controlling d5 and e4, so c4 could be a good idea. Now, do I want my king in the center or do I want it on g1? Okay, for now I'm just going to play knight c3. Maybe c4 was better, but... And if he plays knight d5, of course I don't take it, improving his pawn structure. I'm thinking of setting up a blockade on c5 with bishop e3 and knight a4, knight c5. But if I go bishop e3 now, he can play knight d5, which I don't want to allow. So I could go bishop d2 and castles queenside. I could also go a3 to prevent bishop b4. I could also castle. Yeah, maybe c4 was better. For now, I'm just going to castle to be able to meet bishop b4 with knight a4 and start setting up the blockade on c5. When your opponent has a weakness, you have to fix it first. So ideally, I want my bishop on e3, my knight on c5. But he has knight d5. So after knight a4, I probably... Oh, okay, he plays knight d5 immediately. This could be a mistake, I feel, because I have knight a4 and because later on I'm going to have c4. Can he play knight b4 though? Knight b4, I can just go c3, so that should be okay. So, yeah, when your opponent has a weakness, you want to blockade it, make sure it doesn't move. So c5 could actually be a candidate move now, but I have c4. So okay, now c4 should be a good move. Knight b4, I go a3. Knight c7 to b5 is not good. Okay, I want to develop my bishop, so I'm going to go c4. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. Okay, yeah, why didn't I see this? I didn't see this. She could have played it on the last move as well. Yeah, I don't know how I missed knight b6. Well, now it is going to be pretty equal. I don't think I have a choice. I think I have to take. Okay, at least I get one tempo with bishop e3. Now, does he play c5 or b5? Because I have a passed pawn now. I mean, I have a potential passed pawn, but I don't think there's an easy way for him to prevent me from creating one. So c5 makes both our bishops worse. But I think it's more significant for his bishop. If he goes bishop f6, I can go rook fb1. That I did see. Or I could just trade. No, that liquidates too much material. Okay. Had he gone bishop f6, maybe bishop b6, bishop b2, rook b1, rook a2 is okay for me. But I gave up a pawn for not much. Okay, so I don't know if I should go a3 or not. I'm also looking at bishop d4 to just improve my bishop before doing anything else. Because then I could go b4 in one move. But again, I don't want to trade off too much material. Yeah, this is not a very exciting game, but I think it's going to be a good endgame. So a3. If bishop f6, rook fb1, or rook a2 even. But I don't want to pin my rook. Bishop d4, he castles. I go b4, he goes c5. Well, not yet. Do I want my pawn on c5? That's the question. No, because then he can play b5 and stop me from playing a4. So I want to go b4, a4. Okay, so rook d1 is another candidate. But then maybe bishop f6, because I wasted the tempo same as he did. So I think I want to take over the main diagonal first with bishop d4. I mean, I don't want to allow bishop f6 in any scenario. I feel that my bishop is much better on c3 than on e3 because it supports a5 and it also prevents bishop f6. Yeah, I don't know why I missed knight b6. That was a big mistake. I don't know what he's thinking about. If he goes rook a4, I can go b3 and take the pawn on g7, so that doesn't work. If he goes c5, I take on g7, bishop f6 ruins his pawn structure even more, g6 loses a rook. King f8 could be an option, but I don't see why you'd play king f8 instead of castling. I don't know, I think castles is the only move. And what do I do then? Castles. Do I go b4? b4, if c5, that loses a pawn. If bishop e7, then bishop c3, c5, b5. Okay, he played bishop f6. This I'm happy to see. I mean, obviously this isn't a winning advantage, but it's definitely close on the highest level, and I have to be better. I have a passed pawn and he doesn't. So now he should be trading off pawns. And I should be activating my rooks. Do I go for the passed pawn straight away? Or do I want to take over the d file? b4, let's say king e7, a4. Let's say rook to d8. Yeah, he has rook d8. So rook d1, king e7. And then I can go rook d2. I think I want to play on the a file. Excuse me, on the d file first. Okay, I'm going to play rook d1 for now. I don't want to lose the d file, definitely, because if I go b4, king e7, a4, he just goes rook h to d8, threatening rook d2. So yeah, this I have to do. And I don't have time for rook d2 because I'm hanging on a2. So I'm just going to start improving my king before doing anything else. So king f1 to king e2. Okay, let's improve my king. I have a way in for my king, so I can do this always. I want to keep one pair of rooks on the board, definitely, because pawn endgames are tricky. He has a pawn which can become a passed pawn as well. Now he has the d4 square. So this I should parry. If he plays rook d4, I could lose my advantage, I feel. So do I really have to trade off all the rooks? What's the pawn endgame like if he plays c5? Takes, takes, takes. I feel like the pawn endgame should be better for me, but I would like to keep one pair of rooks on the board. Then again, I don't see a way to prevent rook d4 unless I take. If he takes with the king, I advance. If he takes with the rook, I have to play rook d1, because again, rook d4 is threatened. So I have to take. I mean, if rook d4 happens, then whenever I take, he just takes with the e pawn and has a protected passed pawn, basically. And if he takes with the king, he doesn't have rook d8. Okay, so rook d1, I feel I have to play it. Again, I don't want to allow rook d4. Pawn endgames should be better for me. And now I need to find a way in for my king. If he trades. If he goes back to the a file, I can play a3. And then if rook a4, I have king d3. Okay, this doesn't worry me too much. I'm not sure I want to go g3 though, but because on g3, rook g4, yeah, doesn't really threaten anything. Why didn't he play rook d4? I mean, that endgame is kind of strange. I think I'm much quicker because I get to play b4, but I didn't calculate it deeply. Here he could have the same idea, but for some reason he went to g8 first. I'm not sure I want to go king f3, so I'm just going to play g3 for now. I'm expecting rook g4. And I have to play b3, because if I play king d3, he has rook d4 check. So, rook g4, b3, rook d4 takes, e takes. Okay, he doesn't play that. Okay, so that I'm happy to see. I cannot go b4 because he plays rook a2, and on rook d2 he has rook a4, where my rook has to stay on b2 and I cannot move my a pawn. If I go a4, he goes c5, so I don't want to do that either. I could try preventing rook g4 with f3, but I'm not afraid of rook g4 that much because I can go king e3. I think I'm just gonna go king e3 anyway. I just don't want to allow an easy f4 if I don't have to. This improves my king, so it cannot be a bad move. Okay, he's threatening to play h4, so I should play h4. But if I do play h4, then I don't have a way in for my king, or not an easy way at least. But I still have to do it, I think. I think I have to play h4. Ah, I'm giving up the g4 square forever. Maybe I should just leave this. h4 is very committal. I mean, I want to stop his pawn from advancing because it's an isolated pawn and it's weak. I need to get the d5 square. I have to get the d5 square. So I need to play b5 to weaken d5. How can I do that? b4, rook a2, rook d2, rook a3 check, or rook a4. I don't like it. Oh, and I'm short on time. Okay, I think I'm just going to leave him to play h4 if he wants to play h4. I don't want to waste the tempo on that, because I'm giving up the g4 square forever if I do it. But I still don't think I can play b4. I could try playing rook d3, rook b3. That's interesting. Because he doesn't have king d7. And on rook d3, h4, rook b3, hg, hg, rook b8, I can go c5, b5, and then a4, b4, rook d3, and I have a passed pawn on the a file. That's an interesting plan. I need to do something active, so I'm going to do this. I hope I'm not missing anything. If he goes rook g4 here, I think I'm going to be trading with rook b6. Because then he has to take on c4 and I take on b6. Yeah. I don't want to play b3. I want to play rook b3. Yeah, okay. This gives me a passed pawn on the a file, which is extremely dangerous for him. It's an outside passed pawn. In the endgame, you want outside passed pawns. I mean, especially, for example, in knight endgames, but also in rook endgames, they are the toughest to be controlled by the king. His king is on e7. If I have a passed pawn on the c file, then it's easy. If it's on the a file, then his king has to be misplaced. I don't think he spent enough time on rook g4. That's a very committal move, because there is no way to defend the pawn. If f4 check, I can just go king f3, which prevents h4. But then I have to be careful about e4. e4 check, king e4, fg3. Yeah, this could be tricky. f4, king f3, e4 check. And if I take, he plays fg3 check, and I can lose. And I do lose. So I cannot go king f3, because he gains the tempo. I cannot go king f3, I cannot go king e4. So then king e2 has to be forced, I think. Because if I'd gone to f3, then check, and if I take, then check. And he just queens the pawn. Okay, what do I take with? Take with the h pawn. Okay. Now I just want to push my a pawn. I have a very simple plan. For now it doesn't work because I don't have b3. However, I could try to get behind the h pawn, but then he has rook c2. And I also don't want my rook in front of the pawn, I want it behind the pawn. So I want to get my rook to c3, so rook b3 seems very sensible. Okay, and I have to play quickly, I mean I'm just way too low on the clock. This may be a passive move, but I want to do this to make sure there's no rook c2, and then I want to push my pawns. I couldn't have gone behind because rook c2 loses all my pawns. And now, okay, yeah, okay. Now he has to trade. Or play rook b4, which allows me to push my pawns. Or check on e4, which got rid of his threat of rook c2. I'm not good enough to know whether this pawn endgame is winning or not, but I would rather be white. It's probably a draw, but I would rather be white because I have an outside passed pawn. Yeah, okay, he declines the trade, which seems sensible. I think I want to go to f3 because of his pawn majority over here. Okay, I'm not going to allow his king to approach that easily. And how do I start pushing my pawns? If b3, he cannot blockade. I need to start pushing. So b3, a4 is my idea. He doesn't have king d4 before he plays c5. I don't want to play rook d3, that would be a stupid move. So okay, I'm just gonna go b3 to make sure I can play a4. And also I'm preventing rook a4, which maybe he should have played on the previous turn. And also, if he plays king d4, I can go rook c4. Just takes, he has to take with the pawn. Then the pawn endgame is definitely winning. So king d4, I think, loses. King d4, check. King back takes, pawn takes, king e3. Yeah, and yeah, that's winning. King d4 loses. I don't even take on c6. Why do I only have 2 minutes on the clock? I'm gonna have to be careful if he plays h4 and takes rook takes, because he will be threatening rook h3, winning my c3 rook. So I would have to fall back. I don't have time for a4. The main thing is that I'm cutting his king off from my passed pawn, which means that he needs to get behind with his rook somehow. So probably rook e1 is a good move. But then maybe rook c4 with the idea of rook h4. Yeah, but then he has time to take on b3. Still, I think rook e1 is a good idea. Yeah, but if he trades off my f and g pawns for his f and h pawns, then it's a draw. Definitely, because I have a rook pawn and that's impossible to queen. As long as I can keep pawns on the board, I have winning chances, but if we trade off the kingside pawns, then I have no winning chances. Well, maybe if his c pawn drops, but this is an interesting endgame. He has 6 minutes, I have 2, almost 2. 2 minutes is not enough time. So I think he should play h4 first, or rook e1. If he plays rook e1, he doesn't have h4, so maybe h4 first. And then after, for example, king e2, he continues with rook h1. Or I could go king g2, but that's scary because I'm going to the corner, which I don't want to do. I don't understand this. What's the point? He wants to play king d4 now, and then on check, he thinks he's safe. So he wants to play c5, king d4 in this position, I think. And if I go a4, he wants to go rook b4. So now can I get behind somehow? Check, king c5. Rook d6, king b4. No, I don't have time for that. a4, rook b4. I don't know, I'm just gonna go a4, even though he has rook b4. Maybe I should have tried getting my rook behind first. But I need to do something because I'm below a minute. I don't get this. What if I go rook c4? Rook c4 takes on g3, takes on g4, h takes g4, king g3. That's good. I'm gonna go rook c4. This has to be good, I feel. Because I'm preventing e4. And I'm preventing fg. Oh, okay, I'm going to stop talking. I have to stop talking. I have 20 seconds on the clock. Because now I'm just threatening the pawn. Why did I miss that? Why did I miss that? I missed the intermezzo. Okay, I have to take. No, okay, wait, what do I have to do? I need to concentrate somehow. Ah, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what to do. Maybe I should have just taken the pawn. Yeah, now I'm losing, I think. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. On king b5, I have b4. Ah! Ah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't see this. Yeah, I didn't see the intermezzo. Ah. Okay, this was tough. Okay, insufficient material. Let me just expand the thing. Ah, I'm not happy about this. I think I had a better endgame. Let's see. Wait, 0 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 0 blunders. Is that? Can you guys see this? It says that both my opponent and I had 0 mistakes, 0 inaccuracies, and 0 blunders. How is that even possible? Let's turn on the engine. I don't believe that. Okay, cd4 takes. Okay, we can turn on the book. Now it says I had 1 inaccuracy, my opponent had 0. Okay, let's move on. Bishop d7. Bishop f3 is not the best move, but it's okay. Okay, and I do have a slight edge. Knight c3 is... Yeah, I should have played knight d2. King e2 was better, okay. Knight a4. Yeah, knight b6 immediately just equalizes. c4 is bad. c4 is bad because I have to take. Bishop f6, best move. Okay. So we both actually played correctly. a4. Okay, so a4 I never would have played, because then on c5 I don't think I can never create a passed pawn. Okay, I played king f1. This is all very equal. Rook b3 is okay. The idea with rook b3. Wait, I can play king f3, look at this. I thought I couldn't do this, so here I thought e4. And of course if I take, then I lose. But then I can go back. Okay. And the point is that he cannot trade and take on c4. Okay. But I played king e2, he took, I took. Takes. Wait, we actually played perfectly, both of us. a4 is okay. Rook c4 best. Takes. Yeah, okay, he has the intermezzo, which I didn't see because I had no time. a5, okay. b4. Yeah, this is insane. I don't know if you guys can see this. My opponent had 0 inaccuracies. Average centipawn loss 7. Wow, okay. Let me expand this even more. How do I do this? I don't know if this is going to work. Okay, can you guys see it now? Okay, you should be able to see it now. Look at this. 0 inaccuracies. But it was an easy game, to be honest. I thought I was better in the endgame. So allowing knight b6 is bad, definitely. So here, instead of c4, what do I do to prevent knight b6? Which means that knight a4 was a mistake, so let's not play knight a4. Which means that knight c3 was a mistake, so let's not play knight c3. So maybe c4 immediately, and then he plays e6. Then I go knight c3. But then he has here and this. No, not here. Takes. Yeah, okay. But yeah, this was probably better. Let's see what the engine says. No, doesn't like it because of e5. Huh. I actually don't know. I thought I had a better position, which is true, but okay, I just want to show you the line I was talking about here. So instead of knight f6, he goes bishop g4, bishop e2, knight c6, d4, and castles queenside. And these lines are extremely sharp. There have been, well, about 300 games, I think. This is the main line. You go c4, the queen could go to h5, I think, but f5 is the most common move. You block and then they take, and take the pawn. And after you take with the bishop, they go queen e6, you go bishop e2, and then after they take, you castle. If they take with the, they go queen e4, you castle, and if they take with the queen, it's good. If they take with the rook, I think white wins immediately. There is queen a4, queen a4, and you're threatening here, and I don't remember everything, but if they take the bishop, then I think it's over, but you need to know how. Yeah, this was I'm going to say a boring game, but we both played well, so what can you do? Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow for another game. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.